Welcome to the Getting High on Leadership series featuring Paul Karasik. Paul is one of America's top management consultants helping leaders succeed. He is the author of 9 books, including Sweet Persuasion and Brilliant Thoughts and Provocative Questions. His insights appear regularly in major publications, and he is one of the most sought-after executive coaches. Paul founded the American Seminar Leaders Association and the Psychedelic Institute of Los Angeles. He is a popular speaker at national conferences and has been on stages across all 50 states and internationally. Paul's work addresses the question, how can we transform conflict in business into collaboration? With decades of experience in management, leadership, and psychedelics, he brings a unique perspective on personal and societal growth. In this series, we'll be discussing his latest book, Getting High on Leadership, The Leader's Guide to Higher Consciousness. We'll be exploring the concepts, techniques, and mindset required to revolutionize leadership. Enjoy. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the series. My name is Sanchez, your host, and we are joined again by Paul Karasik, the author of Getting High on Leadership. Paul and I are making our way through the book, and today we're talking about the section called The Invisible Boat. It can be found on page 64, and remember, like always, you can find a link to the book below in the show notes to follow along with us. And feel free to start from the beginning or pick and choose from the sections as you find them interesting. Paul, man, how can we begin today talking about the invisible boat and the importance of it?
Well, we mentioned it in the last chapter. This idea.
It does kind of expand on it, I think, on the vision side of things.
Yeah, this is, as I said, in this section, we're going to get into some of the nuts and bolts. I've mentioned a few times, consciousness is not a do thing, it's a be thing. But there's a lot of doing that comes from the being, and this is kind of one of them. As a leader, how do we get that boat to move the fastest? How do we get people to put the oars in the water at that same split second? Pull on that boat, shoot it ahead at an incredible speed, and that's through communication. And I referred to it in the last chapter. It's the job of the leader to be creating the emotional content for that vision, right? We say leadership is the transference of an emotion. When you can feel what I feel about the goals, the direction, the ultimate ends that we're looking for, when you're as passionate, then you're the most effective. You're the most committed. You're going to get the most results. So how do we transfer that? How do we translate that? How do we communicate that? Is in primarily stories. So telling what the leader has to begin to focus on is this vision. It has to be communicated in words and numbers and whatever the case may be, but also in stories. Because stories allow us to create that emotional involvement in a particular issue. They allow a connection. They allow us to identify. And so when we talk about the invisible boat, there is no boat. We're talking about a future that hasn't manifested yet. So everything we're saying is made up. We are the best, blah, blah, blah in the whole world. Well, you're not, but you're saying you are. And that's the disconnect is you're saying you are is what creates what you are. But right. We have to communicate that, right? I mean, it's not enough for me to have the vision. I need to get emotional commitment from you about the vision.
Some buy-in, some shared vision. Actually, getting the rest of your team to help you carry that banner forward, I think, is key there. And I know it can be very, very difficult at times to get everyone on a team or within a company to pull in the same direction. And I think going back to these core things like vision, making sure the vision allows you to get to your mission statement, and then starting to really just hit that drum and set the tone, right? It's I think it's a process that over time, the ship can be corrected, and a team can be back on track or moving towards a positive milestone or an end goal. It takes some work there, and I think the story method is a wonderful way to make that relatable across departments, across ages, any kind of barrier that could present itself in a leadership situation. Maybe just putting a PowerPoint and saying what it is and walking away would work for some people. But for most, I think you want to hear that story. You want to understand the importance of it, see an example of it or something that would come to mind easier than that, slide 6 of the PowerPoint last Tuesday.
Right. And you know where you see this exhibited in terms of how vision and leadership is in politics. Because you'll see a politician take a very big concept, right? And then drill it down to, we're talking about better wages for blah, blah, blah. And I'm talking about Joe Smith, who lives in Youngstown, Ohio, and, who makes such and such amount of money, whose son has some physical ailment that he doesn't have enough money to. So they take that big concept into a story, and they might even bring Joe up on stage, or they might even show a picture of Joe up on the screen. Right?
Immediately make it relatable. You understand.
It's not. It's not this big thing about healthcare available for all, or whatever the political issue is. It's about this one person. It becomes one story, and that becomes identifiable with everybody. And so we see the power of the story. Another place to look at this concept about how communication at its highest form works is TED Talks. If you watch TED Talks, you see that the core of every TED Talk is a story or multiple stories in every case.
It is.
I mean, there's not
successful
one
TED Talk, you come out of it feeling like, hey, you're ready to get on that boat, right?
Oh, yeah. Whatever the case is, pollution or whatever, whatever, Earth Save the Earth or water or the whales or whatever they're talking about. You're like, I'm ready,
Yeah.
They bring it home in a way that's so relatable. And that's the beauty of story. Story creates images, and images are direct communicators to our brain without words. When we see an image of something, it's a direct communication without words. It's more direct than words. So that's why film that's our royalty in this country. They represent our royalty because they create the images that we then that our life reflects. I mean, one day I was just looking at one of my favorite movies is Wizard of Oz, and I actually got involved with a sequel of that, of help producing another kind of Wizard of Oz thing. So I'm really passionate about it. I think it's the greatest movie in the world ever done. And there's so many scenes throughout the day. I would start to note how many things were relating in the news. Like they would say, so-and-so politician is going to let us behind the curtain. Well, that's from Wizard of Oz.
Just in the way that people even speak.
It's in our language, constant references, to these images that become embedded in our psyches. And so telling stories is the creation of those images. And that's why, like I said, movies are considered such a key part of our culture, and our movie stars are like our royalty. They're like our kings and queens. Royal carpets roll out for them, and people bow to them, and I can't believe I'm speaking to you. We're so impressed because they're delivering the images, and
right.
and the words. Truth, you can't handle the truth. It's like our very culture is embedded with all these movie themes and statements and images and all this other stuff. So if you want to be a great leader, you have to take a sincere interest in this idea of telling stories, of relating to people, to create this image of there's really a boat here, when in fact there is no boat, there's just a vision. A vision is not a boat. Vision is an idea, it's a concept, it's non-physical. But people feel like they have a real boat, and we got real oars.
And ready to come to work the next day.
and they're ready to go to work the next day, and they're excited about it. And this whole thing, that's, I think it's a really beautiful image, because the boat is made up. The boat doesn't exist. It was formed while you were sitting drinking that cup of coffee, looking out the window at the trees and just daydreaming. You had an idea, but it was all here, and it's still here.
Yeah.
And everybody's pulling on the boat, and there's no boat. It's just it's a vision.
But then after action, right, and repetition and routine, doing that, suddenly there's a boat, actually, right?
After a while, you feel like there's a boat. Yeah, there's an entity there. And having started a few businesses in my life, I find that with businesses too. You may have found this too as an entrepreneur, Rob, where, you come up with the concept apartment 113. Well, that was a vision. It was like an idea, like you were sitting there, maybe, I don't know, whatever, just hanging out, staring at a candle or something, and said, apartment 13 would be one really cool thing, and we could have people come on and talk about this stuff, and I could relate to my cannabis experiences and so on and so forth. But it was a total made up thing, right? I mean,
yeah, definitely. You have to build that. You have to build that idea first and start working towards it as if it exists for it to be a thing and ever have any traction or have a chance.
Yeah. And then you start to refer it as a living entity. Oh, yeah, well, apartment 113 does this. Apartment 113, it was a made up thing. It doesn't even exist. But now you're saying it like, or I'll say this, we have the Psychedelic Institute of Los Angeles. The Psychedelic Institute of Los Angeles stands for the psychedelic. That's an idea. It was a concept that.
Did you get that one from staring at a candle too?
Yeah, staring at a candle, probably. Like, what a great idea this would be to have, a center for this kind of information that could be distributed, could be built, could be collected, could be, and so on and so forth.
And it really takes that. Like to have those kinds of ideas and plans. I think it does take that conscious visioning that we discussed in the previous episode to look forward, to kind of catapult yourself into that what if and see what's possible.
Well, you start believing there's a boat there. It's like Google is an idea. It's a name. Right. It's a word. There's a lot of people
that they created through that action after distilling the vision through hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now we have an idea that a Google is. How do I know? I Googled it.
Right.
It's actually, we actually refer it to like it's a person, but it was never a person. It was just
standing firmly on that boat that someone envisioned before.
And we've repeated it so many times that now we're pulling the boat is somehow visible to us. That Google is an entity. It has a personality. It responds to things. It gives me answers. It searches for things. But it was never that. It was simply a concept of somebody said that wouldn't it be cool if we could look for stuff on the internet and find it? That was the idea.
And they were good at telling that story, right, to get people behind it. Because just having that vision without being able to convey it is going to be a short lifespan on the vision.
You got to be able to convey it. Yeah, and become a great communicator, start to study story. I don't know if we're going to get into too much of that in this series, but I definitely will have some stuff available on that. But cool. Just appreciate, the great place to start is just appreciating stories and just see how politicians use stories, how great communicators use stories, how, the Bible is just a series of stories, the Old Testament and the New Testament. They said, okay, how are we gonna convey these incredibly big conceptual ideas of consciousness and spirituality and God and so on and so forth? And they said, let's tell it in a little story. A man went out to, a father had 3 sons, and one was a good son, and one was a bad, and one was and it's this, they took this huge thing and they just distilled it down into the story of this much higher concept. So I want to encourage everybody in this chapter you got to be able to describe, you got to be able to communicate, You got to have everybody hitting speaking about the invisible boat as if it existed. You need to charge it with that life. And we do that through communication in general and specifically through story.
Yes, no, thank you, Paul. Excellent words of advice there, and an intriguing chapter here, folks. Thank you for listening and watching. Please take your visions to the next level. Start telling these stories. Work in storytelling to your leadership techniques on any scale, and pay attention to those stories around you. We'll see you guys here on the next episode. And feel free again to find the ebook down below and follow along with us on this journey through the book. Thank you. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Getting High on Leadership series. If you have any questions, you can comment below or send them in via email to paul@paulkarasik.com. Follow him on Instagram at PK_the conversation. Find out more at wholesalerinstitute.com and psychedelic-awakening.com. The Getting High on Leadership series is produced by Rob Sanchez and Apartment 113, which can be found at apartment113.com and followed on Instagram at APT_113.